All right. Welcome to the Resume and LinkedIn Development with Dr. Ding. She is the head of the Masters in Technical Communication program here at NC State. Her research is in AI, intercultural professional communication, health communication, and science and technical communication, among other things. And this event is with TCA, the Technical Communication Association. Just a quick plug for our Twitter and Facebook if you want more information from us, and be on the lookout for information from the SpeedCon 2020. Thank you for coming, and Dr. Ding, take it away.
Great, thank you. All right, thank you. Thanks for TCA for inviting me to give this talk. And today I'm going to focus on AI-assisted recruiting. So if you haven't paid attention, one of the important things you want to know is your resume will probably not be read by any human beings at the beginning of the screening process. And you need to know how resumes are screened and evaluated differently in today's world. Okay, so I'll start with that change, and then I'll walk you through how the change take place and what's going on right in their AI tools and how everything will be evaluated. Okay, so traditional job search, when we talk about job search, we always think about print materials such as resumes and cover letters, right? We submit those to the hiring manager, the HR divisions, which will be screening the resumes, and then they'll come up with a short list for job interviews. Eventually, one of the candidates will be given a job offer. So that's how it functions. And when we look at the type of stakeholder groups, we, the applicants versus employers who made the offer, right? Those are the two groups of key players here. And today, the AI tools have been transforming how job search works. So LinkedIn, for instance, if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, you should definitely create one. I will talk about that in the second part of the talk. So LinkedIn has been using algorithms to make their profiles more searchable, and then AI tools will be automatically screening and ranking the resumes before they screen out of maybe 75% of the applicants and forwarding their 25% to human resume readers, who are usually recruiters. And then the 25% may be invited to have AI video interviews, and their social profiles will be gathered by the recruiters, and eventually a short list of 3 to 5, 5 to 8 candidates will be forwarded to the hiring manager. And that's where those candidates will be interacting with the actual employer. So if you look at how the landscape of job search functions, we have 3 groups of key players here, right? The recruiters actually play an increasingly important role in mediating between applicants and employers, and their tools are AI tools, right? They use AI tools to cut down their search and screen time and get to the shortlist much more quickly to reduce costs, right? And to speed up the hiring process. And the data is 75 resumes will be rejected in the first round of screening by AI tools. Okay. So to help you to understand how this actually works, right? We are almost in a different era now in terms of job search. I'll give you I'll walk you through 3 different parts. Number 1, what is a resume person, and how are your resumes processed by the AI tools? And then the second part will walk you through ZipRecruiter, which is almost like the #1 AI job search platform. And then we'll end up with LinkedIn for networking and for job search. Okay, so the first thing you want to learn about, you want to learn how to cope with is resume parsing tools. And I'll give you one example, which is a pretty prominent market service provider, which is Actually. Okay, so here's a tutorial offered by Actually to talk about how the algorithms works to make sure, they try to be transparent and say, oh, we do this in an effective way and we have ethical considerations as well, right? That's what their technical marketing tools are for. Okay, so this video talk about how they use resume parsing and semantic search and match. So those are the key procedures. First, your resume will be parsed, and then the AI tool will be doing semantic search and match to match your resume with job ads, right? To rank different resumes. Okay, let's see whether my mouse will work. Okay, so what is a resume parser? So a resume parser turn unstructured data, which is our resumes, right, into structured format, which usually uses what we call XML format. And the tools start with job ad parsing. So there'll be, any job ad will be broken into maybe over 80 different data points, sometimes 100. So everything will be broken down, right? It's like, imagine a Excel spreadsheet. Okay, you have 80 different data points. Okay, starting with a job ad, and then the resumes, right, will be passed as well into corresponding categories. And as you can imagine, some of the most important things will be experiences, skills, right? Education, skills, credentials, qualifications, right? So that's what the resume parser will be looking for in our resumes. And the procedures, so here's the user interface of Actually. So remember the users, the target users of Actually, resume parsers such as Actually are actually recruiters, right? So let's say I have opening in Red Hat and I will be recruiting that candidate for them. So as a recruiter, as a staffing agency, I will be getting a lot of resumes from LinkedIn or submitted by candidates. And then I have that 500 resumes, for instance. So I will be uploading all those resumes to that user interface. And then I'll click, okay, import, pass it. And then all the resumes will be categorized, broken down into different data points, right? So different types of information will be extracted from the resumes, and then very granular data will be created based on the resumes. And then you can imagine, 80 different data points in their job ads and 80 different data points from 500 resumes. And then there's a matching and ranking. Okay. And for the shortlisted candidates, sometimes service providers will be also offering like a short paragraph of summary. Okay, here's the qualifications and skills of these candidates, right, which make them top candidates for your position. So that's how your resumes will be processed by the AI tool. Okay, and oftentimes, the job ads may be individual, right, based on individual positions, or it may be based on category of jobs. I'll talk about this in a couple of slides, but I do want you to keep in mind it's skill standard and it's job standard. Okay. So for instance, they actually in the advertisement, they talk about how they have over 90,000 skills and taxonomies. Remember, they are doing staffing or hiring for all kinds of positions. So those are the skills for a wide range of positions or job titles. And even for soft skills, right? For instance, we all claim, I have leadership, I have good time management, I am enthusiastic, I'm a fast learner. Those are all soft skills. And the AI tools typically will have a lot of soft skill keywords to measure, right? Does the candidate actually have this soft skill that we require in our job ad? Okay, and if you look at the time, right, when I teach resumes, I used to ask my students, how much time do you think a hiring manager will spend on your resume? And, typically that answer would be maybe 15 to 30 seconds, right? Depending on, which company you're talking about. And when we move on to resume parsers, it's a couple of seconds, 1 second per resume. Okay, so we don't have much time. Okay, what is semantic matching, right? Semantic search and matching. So we talk about how job ads are broken down into 80 plus data points, resumes are broken down into 80 plus data points, and there may be some matching going on there, right? So the problem is, if we hire a position, there are multiple ways to talk about that job title, right? So for instance, a project manager can be a project lead, right? So the AI tools will be looking for synonyms, multiple synonyms describing the same thing, keywords that are related to the same thing, okay? And they use a range of keywords to fetch the right candidate, right? To make sure they get the strongest candidate, okay? And then if you make the cut to the top 25%, right? After the 75% of resumes get rejected, congratulations. The next stage will be social profiling. So basically, I actually call that resume enrichment. What it means is its AI tools will be scraping the web, looking for your publicly available online information, such as social media posts, the messages you liked, the messages that you commented on, and then they will be processing that to generate like a social profile of this candidate, right? In terms of personalities, behavior, traits, strengths and weaknesses, and so on and so forth. Okay, so now we know how resume parser, right, works. I'd like to introduce to you how the employment marketplace, such as ZipRecruiter, works. Okay, so we upload our resumes to places like ZipRecruiter, Monster.com, Indeed, right? You name it. We have hundreds, thousands of online job boards. Okay, I choose ZipRecruiter is because of the popularities of the tool, right? It is the #1 tool, and it partners with over 100 leading job boards. Okay, and it also has millions of resumes already submitted to their website. And what it uses is what is called ATS, applicant tracking system. Okay, so when we have recruiters, staffing agencies who are all competing to fill that position, right? To get that commission, we may have the same candidates. We may have a very similar pool of candidates. So their applicant tracking system will be very helpful here for the staffing agency, for the recruiting agency, right? So the ATS will be automatically tagging the resumes, tagging the keywords, right? Looking for synonyms, and then extract keywords, and then do the matching and candidate ranking. And the filters, I want to share one of the really interesting filter with you, other than education skills, right? Location, years of experiences. There's also another measurement of resume freshness, which is really interesting. What it means here is the the AI tools will be looking for so-called fresh resumes, which are not in the market for too long, right? So there's a way for them to tell how long the resume has been online or in their applicant tracking system. And the ones that are on the market for too long basically suggested the lack of competitiveness. So I want you to pay attention to that as well as one of their filters. Okay, so how does applicant system such as ZipRecruiter works? Remember, your resume will be used as data, so the design actually does not help much, right? So they'll be looking for information in your resume and then sort it out into different categories, and then they'll be evaluating the relevance of your resume, your experiences and skills with the particular job you are applying for. Okay, that's already tough, right? And the tools, the AI tools can malfunction when you have fancy fonts that are not readable by the machine, when you have like visuals are not data points, right, for the AI tools. Keep that in mind. And they also have, if you have too small margins, your text may be cut off, right? So let's say usually one inch on each side will be good. But if you try to cram too much information in that one-page resume and you use like 0.5 margins, you may lose that 0.5 margin on the left and right side. Then your resume may not even make sense, right? So pay attention, design. You want to be machine readable, machine friendly. Now that you work on your resumes. Okay, so let me walk you through some of the resume writing tips. Traditional resumes, right? We have headings, we have bullet points, right? We have job titles, bold, right? Used in bold, okay? And then some of the most frequently used sections are education experiences, skills, honors, and awards, right? We all know that. And then we tend to write one objective statement saying seeking employment in whatever. Okay. Now, when you move on to AI screening, that does not help. Instead, I want you to think about almost like reverse engineering, right? If you are a strong candidate, the AI tool will eventually generate one paragraph of description about who you are. So can you articulate that? Instead of having an objective section, can you have a summary statement? What do you do there, right? You highlight the most important skills, relevant skills, right? Results, quantifiable, measurable achievements, and so on and so forth. So use that to basically as an overview of your resume instead of our objective, which will not enhance your resume in the AI screening process. Okay, so here's one example. I won't read it for you, but one thing I want to highlight is you have your job title, right? You talk about your experiences, and then you offer some measurable achievements, if possible, some data, some numbers will be very helpful to help you to stand out. Okay. So for those of you who have been writing for publication or writing about your research, the analogy I want to share here in terms of the summary statement is the research abstract of your paper, of your conference, right? Proposal. Those are like the first impression or the business card you offer when you meet someone in a professional settings, right? And we all know how research abstract work, right? If you look for keywords in the library database, you will find a lot of studies with a title, keywords, and abstracts. And you may base your decision, you may have your decision made based on whether the abstract looked relevant, strong, or useful, right? So your summary statement is almost like the research abstract, okay? Can you make that happen? Can you make it effective, right? Can you tease out the most important things that your application offers? Okay. Okay, And then a new concept I want you to think about is not human-friendly resumes now, it's search-friendly, machine-friendly resumes. What do we mean? Number one is, okay, every job has specialized skills, right? They require a certain range of skills. So do you have those? Can you highlight those related to the jobs in your resume? That's the number one thing. Number two thing, okay, keywords, right? Every industry, every occupation, they may have their own acronyms, right? Jargons. And if the job ad actually uses it quite extensively, make sure you reflect that, right? So use those keywords that are valued by your employers strategically in your resume. Next one, remember machine readable. So keep it clean. Don't make it fancy. Don't use logos or photos, right? Like personal photos, special characters, because the AI tools will be confused. Use web-safe fonts such as Arial or Georgia, right? Next one, I think this one is the tip that actually has the longest shelf life. I mean, 1, 2, 3, right? I just walk you through the first 3 different tips. They are all different, but the last one is still the same. Customize your resume based on individual jobs, please. Okay, every job has different requirements and they emphasize different skills. So you need to tailor your resume very carefully to present yourself as a strong candidate for those positions. So this one still have a long shelf life. So make sure you do that. Okay. Okay. So to sum up, AI screeners, AI resume screeners look for resumes tailored to job ads. You need to show that you have a clear match with a position to break through that 25, to get to that top 25, right, pile. Keywords and skills are the tools that resume parsers use. So make sure you use them as well strategically. And the last one, highlight your competencies, experiences, credentials. I'll talk about that later as well. Skills and competencies are different. Credentials can be measurable, right? Experiences, how long, how much, what job titles, those are all important information you can offer. Okay. Now, so once we've been talking about keywords all the time, next slide, I will talk about strategies of resume keyword optimization. How do you optimize your resume to make sure it may be, picked up by the AI tool, right? So for instance, I'll give you one example. Every profession, every job may have specialized skills, right? Domain knowledge, tools and software and outcomes that are valued by that job title, by that profession. So look for those. To optimize your resume in terms of using relevant keywords, the number one thing I want you to do is to compile your own keywords based on the job ads analysis. And I'll walk you through how you can do that with a free computational analysis / corpus analysis tool that's called Antcan. So once you download Antcan, you compile job ads, you can generate your own list of keywords, important skills, right? Which then can be used pretty extensively to describe your own skills. Okay, so basically whatever is emphasized in that one job ad should be reflected in your own resume, right? I want you to do that matching, that manual matching as much as possible. And eventually, if you can do this, you can stand out better as a competitive candidate. Also, the keywords, one thing you need to pay attention to is make sure you use it in context, right? So you imagine how you can use the keywords, illustrate how you have the required skills such as personnel management or cost management or interpersonal skills. right? In your bullet points, when you talk about your job responsibilities, don't just make it stand alone because that won't help your case, right? So use it in context. Okay. Okay, so optimize your resumes. I want you to do as I said, the reverse engineering, work backwards, start with a job ad and look at what the employers are actually looking for, and then highlight those in your resume. That's the number one thing, right? Job ad analysis. Number two, if you have computational tools, even just some quick search, right? You can identify the important high frequency keywords and then use it in context to describe your experiences and skills and achievements, right? And then the last thing, show the match with minimal distraction. What I mean is you have only one page, right? Oftentimes it's one page of content, If you have too much, don't try to cram everything in that one page. Instead, take out the least relevant experiences so you can focus on the ones that are most relevant to the job and most valued by the employer. Okay, so don't add marginally related information in your resume. That's what I mean. Okay, now, Untitled. The tool that I will encourage you to use is called Untitled, and you can do a quick search. Excuse me. You can find it in Google. If we have time, we can walk through that. So step one, download Untitled as a corpus analysis tool, and you can install that in like 5 seconds. And then step two, look for job ads that you want to apply for. So I would typically, in my classes, for instance, for graduate internships, even for my graduate students, what I will typically do is to ask them to identify 10 jobs they want to apply for and copy and paste those jobs. Save them in one file as txt file, right? Simple text file, plain text file. And then next one will be to use Untitled to analyze the keywords. Untitled, and here at the very bottom, I have the name of the beginning, like beginner's tutorial 1, actually made by the developer, the owner of Untitled, from UK. A very nice introduction. So he actually shows how to do a quick analysis and then come up with keywords frequencies. So once you import your job ads into Untitled and you click on start for the keywords, you will have a list of important words from the most frequently used to the least frequently used. So oftentimes you may have like 1,000 or more, right? And there are useless words such as there, right? Prepositions, in, at, skip those. Don't even pay attention to those. Identify the ones that are important to your job. Okay. And then once you have those job, the key skills for your job title, then make sure you incorporate them, repeat them in your resume, right? To make it more likely to be ranked higher in the resume passing process. Okay, now let's move on to part 3, LinkedIn. I hope you all have a LinkedIn account and you are actively maintaining that account. If not, you should do that probably today. LinkedIn is a career management tool. As long as you stay on the job market, it will be helpful. So it's a long-term tool. Okay, why do we use LinkedIn? This data is a little bit outdated, but I think it's maybe from at least 3 or 4 years ago. I haven't found an updated, percentage for LinkedIn, but imagine this, 3 or 4 years ago, 80% of companies use LinkedIn to find job candidates. Okay, And then this is updated. 96 recruiters use social media in the recruiting process. Okay, and if you look at the breakdown of the social media tools they use, 87% use LinkedIn. Remember, I showed you who are the key players in the recruiting process, right? And today, recruiters, staffing agencies, they are the intermediary between job applicants and employers. So if the recruiters are in LinkedIn, you should be there too, right? Okay, so they can find you at least. Okay, so what are the components of LinkedIn? The number one thing you need to really work on is your summary. The LinkedIn summary is 120 characters, including space, so very, very short, right? So I have a couple of examples here, which are really well crafted and very persuasive, very impressive. Your LinkedIn summary is your sales pitch, right? Whenever anyone finds you in LinkedIn, what they will say first will be that the small window. Okay, Susan James, and then what you do, what you can offer, right? So one thing that one metaphor I use a lot in my teaching of resumes and cover letters is, in your cover letter, you should use what we call an you approach, not an I approach. What I mean is, you can't say, I need this job, right? I need a job. I need to pay my rent. That's the I approach, right? I can get this from your job. That's useless, right? A more effective way is to use the you approach, which basically means what I can offer to you, right? Okay, here's what I can do for you. Here's how I can help you to achieve whatever organizational goals you have. Here's how I can help you to accomplish your mission, right? Something along those lines. So make sure you have that you approach, what you can do for prospective, right? Potential employers. That's a very important sales pitch. Okay, so once you craft that 120 characters sales pitch, then we move on, right? And I want to show you a couple of boring one. Okay, sorry about this. So a boring sales pitch can be, okay, what I do, right? What I use. And then a better one is still the same, right? Programmer, but then it looks more interesting, right? It definitely shows the efforts of careful crafting. And then even for routine jobs, right, such as sales, you can produce something that's quite interesting, that can be a little bit more eye-catching. So be specific, think about your strengths, what you have done. Okay, don't be routine, right? Don't be like the stereotypical thing that everyone can do in your own field. Okay, so. And here's the most important thing in today's talk. If you take nothing else away from this talk, I want you to keep this in mind and do this right away. If you have a LinkedIn profile, I want you to check to see whether you have a personalized LinkedIn URL. Okay. And what I mean in terms of personalized LinkedIn URL is you should have a URL that ends with your own name, not a URL with random numbers. Okay, why? Because having a URL ending with your own name, that's a scarce resource, right? We have so many people with the same name. If yours is still available, make sure you grab that as soon as possible. If not, add something to make it still relevant, right? And it makes your LinkedIn URL look much more professional, to say the least, okay? So if you are interested, if you want to do this, just search, create customized LinkedIn URL, and it's a very straightforward process. So do that, okay? All right. And then we'll keep going. LinkedIn is for networking, right? It's not just job search. You get connected with a lot of people in your own field. So to make yourself relevant and eye-catching, when people search, right, for what we call passive job candidates, for instance, you need to have a good profile. So this is the second part of your LinkedIn profile. So I apologize for my LinkedIn summary. It's not interesting. Okay, I updated that. The LinkedIn profile then, is a 2,000 character thing. Okay, it describes you. You should probably. It's kind of like that elevator pitch. Who are you, right? You have 30 seconds. When you take the same elevator to go to 8th floor, right, with the HR manager of Google, for instance, and you two are in the elevator alone, and you have to introduce yourself because you want that job so badly. Let's say that's your rhetorical situation, right? So how do you craft those 2,000 characters to help to catch attention, to make yourself stand out, right? Not only to recruiters, but also to LinkedIn's algorithm, right? So you need definitely to describe who you are, what you have done, right? What are your strengths, skills, credentials, core competencies, and it's again another sales pitch, an elevator pitch, right? And you need to craft that repeatedly to make it maybe the best writing that you can produce, right? It is high stakes because it may lead to your next job. Okay, so work on that. Spend a lot of time crafting that to make it satisfying to you. It's kind of like you can ask yourself, is this really what I can offer? Is this the best I can offer, right? If you say, okay, yes, then publish that. It is very important part of your LinkedIn profile. Okay. And then after you create your summary and your profile and you fill in all the sections, right? Education, experiences. Then next one, LinkedIn is for networking. Okay. So what I typically recommend graduate students do is number one, connect with alumni from your program, professionals in your field, and recruiters who actually hire in your field. Okay. Number two, join 25 professional organizations in your field. So you'll get connected. You can join online events. You can see what's going on, right? As you can see, I have quite a few groups that are related to different interests I have. Next one, endorse others. LinkedIn has this really funny thing called skills, right? Here's how it works from the insider's point of view. LinkedIn, when it hires, it actually asks the employer to check the skills they value in that job. Okay, does that sound familiar? When you go to LinkedIn, sometimes LinkedIn will ask you to endorse others. For instance, I can imagine how if you check my LinkedIn, sometimes maybe one out of, so very occasionally, I want to say, they will ask you to endorse 5 different skills, right? You can only endorse one skill. Okay, so whenever you go to LinkedIn and it asks you to endorse others in your field, right? Like alumni, faculty, practitioners in your field, make sure you do that. Okay, why? Because it's like a two-way street, right? You endorse others, if others pay attention, they can see you endorse them and they are more likely to endorse you. So it's kind of like okay, reciprocal, right, activity. And the other thing is, LinkedIn is for networking. So if anyone in your field invites you, accept them, message them, thank them, be professional, right, be courteous. So you can build your network there. Okay, here's the privilege of being at NC State. You do have free access to LinkedIn Learning. Okay, NC State I think it spends maybe millions of dollars to keep this subscription free, right? Freely accessible to all of us. And you'd better use it. I've been saying the same thing to my graduate students. It has all kinds of classes, right? Business, like if you're interested in marketing, for instance, PR, right? Accounting, you have all kinds of classes. If you want to learn programming, data science, you can find that in the technology section. If you are interested in design, right? Web development, Adobe Suite, you have it in the creative section. Why? Okay, LinkedIn, remember, once you finish taking those classes, this is what happens. For instance, I was experimenting with LinkedIn Learning, and I finished a few classes that I didn't finish, so I took multiple classes at the same time. So one day I decided to finish all of them to see what happens. And LinkedIn actually listed all the certifications I got from those short courses. And most of those courses are, I want to say, 1 hour, 5 hours, 10 hours long, depending on how substantial they are, right? Okay, and then here's a new service LinkedIn offered. I found it out a couple of days ago, and they asked me whether I wanted to pilot test that. So LinkedIn actually also offer you the opportunity to test, to have assessment, to test, to see if you have some skills, which is really interesting. For instance, one of the skill categories presented to me is agile project management, right? So those are all the ways that you can make yourself more marketable in the marketplace, right? In job search, you have the certifications, you have the skills, right? And if you think back to the beginning of my presentation, everything is skill centered. Your resume will be measured by skills, what skills you have, how much you have, right? So those are important ways to say, I have those skills. I can show you, right? And as an anecdote, one of my students who got hired by IBM, a non-traditional student who returned after a long gap in the employment history. So the strategy he or she used was to spend their morning routines such as breakfast, cleaning, and listening to LinkedIn courses. So by the end of the 2-year degree, he or she actually managed to have over 20 different courses from LinkedIn listed. And that helped tremendously in the job search process. So again, I want to emphasize, use LinkedIn Learning, make full use of it while you can, because once you graduate, you won't have access to this really powerful tool, okay? Okay, to sum up, your journey of job search looks like this, right? Okay, we still have our work and academic career, and during that process, we try to build as much skills, experiences, and expertise as possible. And you want to make sure you update your resume and fully reflect what you can do, who you are, right? So you present yourself as professional as possible. And then in LinkedIn, you have your profile and you connect with professionals in your field, recruiters who hire for potential employers, alumni who are in their dream jobs you want to hire in 5 years, right? Those are all doable, okay? Free to you, right? And in LinkedIn, you can grow your visibility as a professional, and through the connections, you can make yourself much more marketable as well. Okay, so I think that's what I have for you today. If you want to learn more about how AI tools are changing recruiting, I have a website which is based on the National Science Foundation grant that we hide, and we've been doing a lot of research on AI and how AI has been transforming hiring and recruiting and job search. So you can take a look. There are other tools that I don't have time to cover today. Okay, great. So I think that's all I want to talk about today, and I'll stop sharing and see whether any of you have any questions. And if you have any questions, feel free to use the chat.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. And I do have a question for you. So I'm in law enforcement, and a lot of the jobs that I'd be looking for in the executive level of like mid to small law enforcement agencies would be they'd be hired through a consulting company who has a process. And generally, they'll narrow it down to 3 or 4 candidates, and then from there they have a process. So to get into that 3 and 4 candidate range, like I see a lot of their resumes are fairly long, and I may have missed this in the very first part of the presentation, but you talked a lot about having a 1-page, condensed bit. How would you recommend like the getting as much information in as you can and still having that page or that resume that's recognized by the AI tools?
Great, thank you, Brian, for this excellent question. Let me clarify a little bit before I can answer your question. So, do you know how long the resumes are typically in your field? If it's more than 1 page, then you should probably have like a longer resume.
Yeah, so mostly I'm talking about police chief jobs, and they'll have at least 2 pages. Some will have 3, and they generally list a lot of information, like the individual trainings even that they've done. And these have been people who've been in the business for over a decade easily, And so just the trainings that they've been to can be a page long or more.
Right.
And so,
right. So one, this is a really interesting situation, since if you don't have access to newer, right, new people who are new to the occupation, then you don't have like a model, right, a model to imitate. What I think can work is to look for someone who can probably agree to have what we call an information interview with you. So like you've already seen a lot of law enforcement, right, personnel in your LinkedIn contacts, and you can ask them, would you be willing to have an information, would you be willing to talk with me? I mean, information interview sounds too formal, right? To talk with me so I can learn more about possible strategies to get into the field, right? And then ask them, what do you look for in younger, right, applicants such as me, right? I don't have as many training. What do you value? And then another thing that I really encourage you to play with will be Antcon. I talk about how you can use job ads to look for skills and science that the employers may look for. Did you get that part?
I did, and it really resonated because in North Carolina at least, the same consulting company does dozens of police chief jobs every I mean they just do a lot. I see them whenever I search them. They're doing the process, but even if they're not, the skills and the competencies are all pretty much the same, and so it really was just a good reminder to make sure I'm using the same wording that they're using.
Right. That's definitely very important. as well. So if your resume if you can build your skills to reflect those list of keywords and skills, and if there's anything you can do before you can get formal training, like, I don't even know, like have LinkedIn courses related to law enforcement, right? Criminal justice, whatever, may help you as well. So I would say make full use of any resources that are available to you to help you to prepare, right? I think we are all in the same situation. We have limited resources and we want to make the case. So make full use of your resources to present your case.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Okay, so in the chat, we have a question from Elizabeth. What are some tips for making time for acquiring LinkedIn learning certificates? All right. Do you eat? Do you clean? Do you exercise? Right. Use those scattered time. You don't even have to have a computer. Like the student I talked about, he or she actually use a cell phone just to listen. A lot of the courses don't even have a test. So you just finish, you listen and you finish a few, very simple, straightforward quizzes, and they will present you with a certificate of completion. And a lot of them are a couple of hours long. So I think make time for it, listen to it while you eat dinner, listen to it while you exercise will be helpful. All right, let's see, any other questions that you have? Okay, so let me show you how to use Antcon. I promised to do that. So Antcon, right? Here's Antcon. I can't find a file. So what you can do is to go to, okay, let me walk you through. So you go to file and then you go to open file, right? That's what the developer suggested. And then once you have that file here, I don't have it. Once you have it here, all you do is to go to the word list. Okay, and you click on start. You click on start, and then it will generate a list of tools, keywords for you. So let's see. And let me find the slide. Okay. So let me find the slide, and I'll send you. I think it's here, right? I'll send you the URL of the instruction through the chat box. Copy hyperlink, go to chat, and oops. Okay, if I don't have the hyperlink, I'll send you the name. Okay, just go to YouTube and search this, and you should be able to grab that. Right, this is the one. And he actually walk you through other ways to make that happen. Okay, let's see. Okay, so right there, right? Click on the word list so you can see the words all arranged in order of frequencies. Okay. Okay. All right. Do we have any other questions? So I hope I give you some tactics and strategies to make things work when you think about your job application in an AI, facilitated environment. Alisa, did you have a question?
No, I was just going to say thank you so much for your time and for your valuable insights on resume building and LinkedIn development. I just wanted to plug TCA one last time before we left. We're for Twitter and Facebook, our handle is NC State TechCon. And we do have some relevant blog posts coming out on Saturday that has some stuff about LinkedIn and other kinds of job development resources. So check that out.
Excellent. Thank you. And thank you. And thank you all for attending. And thank you, TCA, for hosting this workshop. I hope you learned something, and I hope you can produce a really machine-friendly, machine-readable resume and build your LinkedIn profile a little bit more effectively.